Hey guys, it's Danny here and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to manifest with the moon. So let's get right into it. I'm going to be talking about how to use the full moon and the new moon cycle to be able to manifest and bring in those dreams that you guys are wanting to bring in. So I want to break it up into two separate parts. So I will put a timestamp in the description box in case you're just wanting to hear about the full moon or only the new moon. So I will break it up a little bit to make it easier for you guys and for your viewing pleasure. So to be able to use the moon to manifest or be able to release things as well, you don't really have to believe in astrology or anything like that in particular. We all know that the moon affects the ocean and the water and the tides of the ocean. So because we are made up of predominantly water, the moon also is going to have an impact on us. And some of you might resonate with that when there's a full moon you struggle to sleep or you feel like your thoughts are really scattered. So often I find that people can be quite impacted when there's a full moon as opposed to a new moon or even just the different cycles of the moon. So of course the moon goes through all these different cycles, but I'm only going to be talking about the full moon and the new moon today because those are the two main ones that we use to be able to manifest and bring in those desires. So I do want to give credit where credit is due. So a lot of the things I'm going to be sharing today are things that I learnt from friends and from doing workshops about manifestation and things like that. But a lot of it is also going to come from this book, Moonology. I'll just bring that closer, by Yasmin Boland. And so this book has been such an incredible book to have. It's really taught me so much about the different moon cycles, and it also ties in astrology into the book, which I'll go into a little bit later. But it's not really all about astrology, it's taught me how to use the moon to my greatest ability. So I want to share some of that with you guys. So first off, I'm going to talk about the full moon because the full moon is the time in the month that we really need to be releasing and letting go. You can manifest whenever. You don't need to manifest with the moon cycles. You can literally write down your manifestations whenever because it's always great. And I actually find, for me personally, I don't always have to manifest with the moon because sometimes things can come into creation without the moon. But the moon can really help expand those things that you're calling in and bring it in a lot quicker if you do the work required. So the full moon occurs once a month, and it is the time when we should be releasing and letting go. The full moon isn't really the time to be calling things in. It's actually the time to be releasing. What I do for the full moon is, in order to be able to bring in my manifestation and my dreams, which I call in when the new moon comes, you need to be able to forgive anyone that's hurt you or forgive yourself a lot of the time. I often find it's often to do with ourselves, and we need to kind of release and let go of anything that's holding us back or that could, hinder our manifestations coming into fruition later on down the path. Because when we're holding on to anger or grudges or resentment or fear, that often can, the subconscious mind is so powerful, that can actually not allow our manifestations to come in as quickly as they should or when we want them to, because we're actually pushing it away from all these things that we're still hanging on to, that we don't need to be holding on to anymore. So when the full moon comes around, that is the time to let go and release. It's a time to just be free of all these burdens, I like to say, because sometimes they can feel like a burden, all these things that are holding you back from your greatest potential. So what I recommend and what I have learnt from Moonology, the book, is that when the full moon comes around, it is best to do it the night before the full moon actually occurs. And I will leave a link in the description box of a website that I personally use to be able to find when the full moon will exactly be based on your location. So I often find whenever the full moon is, I'll try and do a full moon ceremony the night before. But the thing is, I don't think you need to be so strict with it personally. It's not optimal to do it a few days later, but I really think it's better to do it whenever at any stage than to force yourself to do it at a particular time if you're not really in it, like if your heart's not really in it, or to not do it at all because you just don't want to do it at a particular time. So you can do this anytime. So I don't want to put people off by saying you have to do it here and it will only work if you do it then. You can do it anytime you want at all, but it is like the optimal time is the night before the full moon to write your list. So what I do is I write a forgiveness list. It's like a forgiveness and like letting go list basically. So I write down like any situations I need to forgive, any people I want to forgive, any kind of repetitive thoughts I've been having or like negative self-talk that I want to let go of. I write down all these things that I feel I need to release and I need to part with. And it can really be anything. Like it can be you need to forgive yourself or a friend or a parent, or it can be like this habit, like you've been, eating too much junk food, or you haven't been exercising enough, and like forgiving yourself for all these things and releasing all these patterns or beliefs that you may have, and surrender that in that night. So I write down a list of things, and you can write as much or as little as you want. There's no rules to it. You can write whatever you want. So yeah, I write this list and then I read over it, and I try and feel it in my heart, and I'll read over each kind of thing that I'm forgiving or person I'm forgiving or situation I'm releasing, and I'll imagine that, that feeling of forgiveness and that feeling of it being gone. I might do some visualizations, depends on how I'm feeling, but visualizing is a great technique to do. And if there's anyone I want to forgive, I'll imagine, them smiling back at me. I'll close my eyes and imagine them smiling back at me, and I'll just say, I forgive you. And then I'll kind of like send them off, and I'll kind of like float away in a bubble. So that is also a great way to let go of anyone that you feel like you haven't forgiven yet, if you're ready to. But I often find a lot of the time it's actually ourselves we need to forgive, or letting go of like a negative self-talk or harsh criticism that we give ourselves. So it's often very focused on ourselves and not actually focused on other people as much. So that's something that you might find when doing your ceremony. It's really important to write the forgiveness list in a way that's saying, I forgive the situation. You don't want to speak about forgiving in the future. So you don't want to say, I want to forgive, blah, blah, blah. You want to say it as if you have already forgiven them. Like, I forgive myself for not exercising enough this week, for example. So it's always, you're writing it in the present moment as if that has already happened. And then I like to feel that in my heart and kind of, feel what it's like to have forgiven that situation or to have released it, and really feel like that joy. And if you sit with that feeling, you will feel that joy come up, because it's a really nice feeling, because often we don't really take this time for ourselves. And that's a really great thing about doing these ceremonies, is that we're actually allowing ourselves to have time for ourselves. It's self-care. So you're putting time aside to focus just on you and solely you, which is awesome. So that's the first part, is doing the forgiveness list. And then of course, when you forgive, you have to fill it with something else, which is gratitude. So when writing these lists, I like to try and match the gratitude list to the forgiveness list. So if I've written 10 things that I want to forgive or release, I like to match it with 10 things I'm grateful for. So you don't have to do it that way. That's just how I like to do it. It's kind of like I'm replacing each of these things with something I am grateful for. So I will then have my forgiveness list, and then I'll write my gratitude list, but you'll write it in the way of I am grateful for. So even if it's something that hasn't already occurred, which you can do this is kind of a part of manifestation as well. You can write like, I am grateful for having a great night's sleep if you're not sleeping well, so you can write things that haven't actually happened as of yet that you're wanting to call in, or you can just write something that you're grateful for, and it can be so small. And if you are struggling to find things to write about or find things that you're grateful for, often the best thing to do is to go back to the really simple things, like I am grateful for having clean drinking water, I am grateful for having food, I am grateful for having a roof over my head. So always go back to the really simple things if you're struggling. So I like to match the number of things I've written to the forgiveness list, and then I will read over them again as well, and I'll feel that gratitude in my heart as well. And I'll just imagine, like, either if it's something I'm wanting to occur, I'll feel that it's already there, or if it's something that has happened that day, like I'm grateful for getting to eat my favorite burger today, for example, then I'll remember that moment of that I'm grateful for that. That's a really nice thing to do, because we often forget that we are very lucky and that we have such great things occurring in our life, that it's nice to remind yourself of what you are grateful for, and it brings you into a really uplifting state as well. So that's the full moon practice, and then what I do afterwards is I burn the lists. Oh, but I actually forgot a really important step, so I'm going to just rewind that. So before you burn the list, you need to meditate. So that is the most important part, is just meditating on it. And you know, it doesn't mean you have to sit in silence. If that makes you feel uncomfortable, you can meditate in whatever way meditation is for you. Just make sure to meditate on your lists after you have written them. And I also recommend taking a photo, because we're going to burn it after. If you take a photo of it, you will always remember what you had written, and then you can always look back and be like, hang on, did I actually let that go? Did I release that? Did I forgive that person? So make sure to meditate on it, make sure to take a photo of it, and then burn it. And that is such a nice feeling. I love when I burn it, because I'm like, oh, I'm like free of this. Even though it may not occur instantly, it's a nice feeling to know that you've just put time and effort into doing something for yourself. And that's my favorite part. So that's the full moon ritual and the full moon cycle. And anyone can do it. It's really just about utilizing the power of the moon and understanding that the moon does have an impact on us, and how you can use it to the best of your abilities, because the moon is so powerful, and it's that feminine energy, and it's about bringing like the darkness into light kind of, and bringing out the shadows, and it's just it's so powerful. So I highly recommend that even if it's not something that you want to do all the time, just try it out and see how you feel after. Let me know what happens, or let me know how you feel after in the comments below if you feel like it. I'd love to hear some of your stories and, you know, what kind of experiences you had. And one thing I just want to mention before you guys go, in case you're not going to watch the new moon part, is that in this book, Moonology, Yasmin also talks about how you can utilize your astrological sign and the house it's in to manifest or to release with the moon. I just want to mention that this book I'm not being sponsored or anything. I just love this book and want to share it with you guys, because it's been such a great gift for me. So I think that it would be really helpful for you guys too. So for example, you can see here, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's got the full moon in Cancer, full moon in Libra, and it tells you like all these different things that you can do and what the particular full moon in that month means for you. So if you are, full moon in Leo, not Libra. So with this full moon and her explaining what the different full moons mean, if you find out that the full moon is in Gemini, you can then have a look and see how the moon is going to impact you that month, and what you can work on in particular, what it may be that you need to kind of let go of. And furthermore, if you do know a bit more about astrology, she talks about the full moon in different houses. So you can find out what areas the moon is going to be focused on in your life during that time when the full moon is occurring, and you can work on that part. And it's so cool, because I often find that whatever the moon is in, and I have a look at this book, it does really resonate with my thoughts that have been occurring in that month, or what has been coming up for me. So it's so interesting to see what comes up, because it often is so accurate to my birth chart and where the full moon is placed, and then looking at where that is in my chart, it's always connected. So you can definitely use the signs of where the moon is, the zodiac signs of where the moon is sitting, to be able to know what you need to focus on in releasing that month. So that's the full moon. So I hope you guys enjoyed that and you learned something from it. Now I'm going to move on to the new moon, so that you can bring in your manifestations now that you've released everything that you're wanting to release and let go of. So the new moon, we can never see the new moon in the sky because the sun is actually blocking it. So the new moon is like the darkest night, and that also occurs once a month. Every month we have a full moon and a new moon, and they're basically 2 weeks apart, consistently 2 weeks apart. So the new moon is when we bring in the manifestations, we make wishes and set intentions, because we've just released all that stuff that is no longer serving us within that month. So now we're going to bring in what our desires are. So similarly to the full moon ritual that I do, I have a similar technique. So when the new moon comes around, I will kind of think about, what have I been wanting to call in? What are my wishes? What are my manifestations for that month? And it can be intentions as well, because they kind of all go hand in hand with each other. So with the new moon, I write down all my wishes and kind of anything that I'm wanting to call in, and there's no limit to what you can write. You can write as much as you want or as little as you want. Again, it's up to you. Make sure that you just do what feels right for you. That's my biggest rule always. So with the new moon, I write down the things that I am wanting or hoping to receive, but the key to manifestation, that is to always write your manifestations as if you have already received it. So the statement I'm going to put it up here, I am, is so powerful, because in order to be able to receive something, you have to believe that you already have it, or you already are that. I hope that makes sense. So again, you need to write your manifestation as if you already have it, or you already are what you want to be. When you're saying I want, it's kind of like you're putting out that energy that you don't already have it. And even though a part of you may think, yeah, well, I don't already have it, that's why I want it, you have to already be in that state that you are, because it's all about the way that you think and sitting in that energy of I am this, like nothing is holding me back. I already have this in my hands. So that is a big part of manifesting. So when doing a new moon list, it is recommended in Moonology that you do your new moon manifestations the night after the new moon. So you don't want to do it the night before, you don't want to do it when the new moon occurs, you want to do it the night after. But you can do it up to 3 days after the new moon. That is the recommended time frame, because it will still be sitting in that energy of that new moon energy. Again, you can do this whenever. There are, again, no rules. You can manifest whenever you want, and you can call in things whenever you want. This is just about using the moon energy and really like using that kind of power that the moon has to bring in that abundance and that manifestation that you're wanting. So I write down all my wishes and the intentions that I have and things that I'm wanting to occur, but I write it down as if it has already occurred and that I am already that. I like to read over each wish that I've listed, and I like to visualize it and feel it in my body. And sometimes I do struggle with that visualization part, so if you struggle with visualizing, don't stress too much about it, but just try and feel it in your body. So do that, because that also is really powerful, feeling it in your body. And I often, like to put my hands on my heart, or I often feel in the heart space for me personally. So I like to read over it because I like to really like reinstate into my physical body and like kind of, it's like changing up the cells and believing like I am powerful or whatever it is. So I read over it and then I feel it, and then I will do the meditation. And whatever meditation means for you, that is the best thing to do, whatever you feel is comfortable and feels right for you. So I do that meditation, and then I will burn the list, but I will take a photo of it as well before I burn it, because I always want to be able to see what I have previously written and what I wanted to experience. And it's interesting because some things may happen, some things may not happen, and it's good to reflect on it and be like, okay, if this didn't happen, why is it? So if things don't actually happen the way that you want them to, don't get too hard on yourself or think, I'm going to give up on this, or I'm not capable of this, or whatever, because sometimes things don't happen either because a part of us is holding back from it actually happening, or it's actually not the best path for us to go on. So I just want to remind you guys of that, because don't be disheartened if things don't work out the way you want. But it's really interesting to be able to look back on it and see what it is that you wanted, and you'll be able to see what actually did come in that you thought maybe hadn't come in. So that is the best part. So many times I have manifested thinking that things that I had manifested didn't occur or didn't actually happen, and then I'm like, whoa, actually I wrote that down like months ago or like last year. We can't control how they're going to happen. So make sure that when you are writing them, your intention behind these are really clear, and try not to write in a negative form. Don't write things like I am not poor anymore, for example, because using the word poor is already bringing in like a negative kind of mentality to it. You always want to write in a more positive, affirming way. So that's really important. So I just want to remind you guys of that. So again, then, I think I mentioned I burn it, and that is because I always like to burn my lists, because I'm releasing it from being in the physical realm into the spiritual realm. It's like a release. Instead of holding on to it, you're letting it go and you're surrendering to it, and you can say a mantra or a chant or whatever you want, whatever works for you. You can call on your spirit guides, your angels, and you're just releasing that. And that's such a great feeling because, yeah, I mentioned earlier, because it's like, okay, I've just done this work for myself, I've put some time into myself, and now I'm releasing it. So that is the new moon wish list and how to write your list. And again, with how I mentioned about the full moon with this book, it's also got the same for the new moon. So wherever the new moon is, whichever zodiac sign it's in, you can see what kind of energy it's good to bring in that month. You can even just have a look and see what the new moon is and where it is in your house, which house it's in your chart, and then you can see what it is for you to focus on that month. And you will often find it does correlate to what thoughts have been coming up that month. That's the crazy thing about astrology. Like, using the moon isn't really astrology focused necessarily, but you can definitely incorporate astrology into it, and that's the beauty of it, because it makes it so much more powerful when you realize that the thoughts you've been having actually correlates to your personal chart and your personal houses in your chart. So that's a really cool way to like make that manifestation and use that energy even more to just get things rolling for you. So that is my little video on how to manifest with the moon. So basically, to summarize it, we use the full moon to release and let go before we call in our manifestations, and we use the new moon to be able to actually bring in those manifestations to life. And it's always important to use I am affirmations and to speak positively and feel as if you have already experienced those manifestations. But the most important thing is to think about it of the experience. So you always want to make sure that it's the experience you're after and not the physical outcome. Often when manifesting, we are wanting to call in like things like abundance and things like that. So it is really important to be focused on the actual experience of it and not the outcome, because we can't control how it's going to come to us. So when you say, I want $50,000, for example, your soul, and on the soul level, doesn't actually care about the physical money. You have to ask, why do you want $50,000? Do you want it so that you can be abundantly free, so you can travel wherever you want to travel to all the time? So things like that. So make sure when you are manifesting that you are thinking about it from the experience and not from the physical outcome, because that is the key to manifesting. It's all about the experience, and I learned that from a friend and from doing a manifestation workshop, and I can tell you that one is a game changer. So don't try to control the outcome, because things come to us in interesting ways that we can't always predict. So you've just got to be open and surrender to the flow of what is going to come and how it's going to arrive to you. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope you guys learned something from it. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. Have you guys done a moon manifestation ritual or a surrendering and releasing ritual? And if you do, let me know how it goes for you. Let me know which full moon or new moon you're doing it under, which sign it's in, and I'll again leave that link down below for you guys to check out the time of when it is in your cities. And thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.